Hi guys, I'm Ollie from Electra-Zoom, and today we're going to run you through how to change a tyre on a Xiaomi M365 scooter. We're going to be tackling the front tyre. We've had a lot of people ask, how do we do this? It seems really difficult, the valve won't fit in. We're going to answer all of those questions in this short little video. There's a couple of tools and things you'll need to start with. You don't need exactly these items. Other equivalents will be necessary. We're lucky we've got plenty of tools about here in our workshop, and we know a lot of you guys won't necessarily have these items. Multi-purpose grease, as I just mentioned, won't always have all these items, so Ferry Up liquid, Vaseline, anything like that will be useful when we come to get the tyre on. Screwdrivers, tyre levers, anything alike, even an old kitchen knife, make sure it's not a sharp one. Spoon, something like that, would be quite useful. These will be useful when we come to put the tyre on later. Pair of pliers, grips, or alike. Little blade, knife, if you've got a Stanley knife, kitchen blade, even a needle would work for what we need to use this for. Ideally an 18mm spanner. If you've got an adjustable spanner, that might also work. 2.5mm Allen key. And this little tool here, which is a Torx bit. Again, we know it might be something you guys might not have lying about at home. Really easy to pick up online or from your local high street. Alternatively, the Allen key might fit for what we want to use it for. This is probably the bit, if you've ever watched any videos like this, that's not used. But we do things a little bit differently on how to change a front tyre on the Xiaomi, which makes the bit that everybody struggles with a little bit easier. First things first is when you take off these little red caps here. There's one either side. So guys, this is what we use the knife for, just to peel them out. They're only stuck on. If you want to pop these to one side for later, as you'll need to stick them back on. Once we've removed the sticky reflectors, that reveals 4 holes. With your 2.5mm Allen key, I'm going to pop that in there and unscrew these 4 bolts. Once taken that off, guys, that really reveals the cable. This is basically a little cover. You want to look after these 4 screws here. We're going to take these 4 out as well, and they are different lengths. So these ones we've just taken out are slightly longer, so pop them in there. We'll pop that to a side for later. And then again, as we just did, remove these 4 just inside the cover that's been revealed. Like I said, guys, these are slightly shorter than the first set of bolts that came up, so again, don't want to mix those up, so we've popped them to one side. Effectively, we've loosened this, which gives us access to this bolt here. But before we undo that, we need to do exactly the same process on the other side. So everything is now being removed for these plastic covers here. The next thing to do is to get your 18mm spanner or adjustable, depends what you've got, and undo the bolts which are either side. These effectively are what hold the wheel on. We've got the first nut off. Again, you want to pop that to one side, make sure we don't lose that. Same again on the right hand side of the scooter, a little bit more tricky. So we've got the motor that houses the wire. So we want to we won't be able to take the nut completely off, it'll feed its way up here. As soon as you start to undo that, the wheel will drop off, and then we're revealed with the nut and a little washer behind. As I mentioned, the wire will stop the nut completely coming off. With the washer, there's a little divot at the bottom, useful for when we come back to install it later. Just remember that the divot sits at the very bottom, not on the top of the wheel. Another thing, guys, the wheel is pretty weighty, motor's housed inside, so you don't want to let all the weight swing from the wire. It won't do it any good in the long term. Next step is to remove all the air from the tyre. Obviously, if you've got a puncture, most of it should be out by now. But if you want to just remove it anyway, because you're changing the tyres, pop a new set on. Easy way to do so is with your 2.5mm Allen key, just press in on the valve, and all the air will remove. So this is typically the area where people tend to get a little bit stuck. So Got to get the tyre off the wheel, which means getting the valve out of this tightly fitted gap. What most people try to do now is try to squeeze the tyre off, get it off with some tyre levers here. But you'll only get so far, as we'll demonstrate, before problems start to occur. Also worth mentioning, you've got to be careful which way you take the tyre off here. You don't want to bring it this way up, as we'll only get stuck on this side of the wire, so we need to be going the other way off. With your screwdrivers, leave them in onto the side, just being careful of the motor and any of the components on the actual scooter. But obviously if you've got a puncture or you've completely replaced the tyre in the inner tube, it doesn't matter if you do catch or break the current tyre or inner tube as they're coming off, and they're scrap anyway. Now it's just a question of completely getting it off at the other end. There is a bit of persuasion needed to get the tyre completely off. It is a really snug, tight fit. Obviously you'll get this far, and a lot of people will struggle, when they're trying to get the tyre back on with the valve. It almost feels like it's too long. Fortunately, it needs to be quite long just to get enough clearance out. So what we then recommend doing is undoing these couple of bolts here, these 6, with your Torx bit. So once that's been removed, it will allow this cover and plate to come off. Easiest way to do it is give it a bit of a tap at the back. A mallet may also be required, might be useful just to help get this cover off. So you just want to tap the back of the thread on the other side. Not too far, just so you get about a finger's width gap. You can spin that round. You'll see it's revealed this plate. So what we effectively want to do is, there's a little slot in the back here with a plastic cap that's hugging the valve in really tightly. Just want to get that off so that's free. Remove that so we get the valve out and get the new one in. Once you've got the cover off, might need a little bit of jiggling about. It'll feel really stiff. It's not like it's glued on or bolted on, but it runs an electromagnet inside, so that's what it is. It's just the magnets pulling the casing back in. But it's this little cap here that we want to remove. And we can get rid of that, it'll let this valve come out, and also let the new valve come back in. So you can either do it with a screwdriver, with your pliers, whatever's easiest. Just grab hold of that and give it a bit of a tug. There we go, let's give it a bit of a flick. It is literally just that that's making it a bit difficult to get the valve out. And then we are free. Obviously, when you've got it in this state, you want to make sure you're in a nice, clean, dry, dust-free environment. You don't want any contaminants getting inside the motor. This is where the action takes place for the scooter, so you don't want anything in here that shouldn't be. That's pretty much how we at least try to get the tyre off the front of the Xiaomi M365. It's not necessarily always the most straightforward process, but if you follow our step-by-step guide, it'll make it a lot easier. If you've got the right tools and equipment. If you've got somebody else who can help, that's always useful as well. Unfortunately I don't, because he's holding a camera today. Guys, we just had a quick couple of minute break. Reason for that is we needed to grab our tyre, which has been in some nice hot boiling water. This one hasn't, so you can see it's still hard, pretty solid. We're going to have to work with it, so it's a bit tough. You see I'm just trying to give it a squeeze now. Compared to our nice hot warm tyre, it's much softer, much more malleable, it'll be much easier when we come to put it back onto the rim. First things first, we've got the new inner tube here. You just want to make sure it is a completely new one. It's not got any holes, tears or rips in it, and that all the air is out of it as much as possible. That'll help make it easier to install. If it's not, just undo the valve, our valve cap, and just press down on the valve. Just shrinks that down a little bit in size, a bit further. So first things first, we want to stick this onto the rim. So because we remove the plastic cap here, getting it through the hole here will be much easier. This is often where A lot of people we found have got stuck in the past, they've struggled to get it in, but obviously once that's through there, that makes our life a lot easier. That also means we can stick this back in. You'll notice I'm wearing gloves now and I wasn't before. That's because this tyre is quite toasty. So what we did is we popped in some boiling water. You can do the same whether you put it in a pan on a hob, bucket of boiling water. Really leave it as long as you want. Anything over 20 minutes is what we'd recommend. It just makes the whole thing a lot softer, more malleable and easier to work with. So once the cap's back in place, we can also stick the motor back in place. It's probably best bet to do that as soon as you can really, because then that stops any contaminants, anything getting inside there that shouldn't be. Make sure it lines up with the valve and just give it a slight tap with a mallet. And then just line the holes up and pop the screws back in. Right, so when it comes to tightening, guys, these are only small screws. You don't need to over tighten them. It's always good practice to work your way diagonally around. Just need to make sure they're just nipped up. They don't need to be overly tightened. You hear it click back into place where it's just settling back to where it should be. Always good practice as well, once you tighten it, just to go around, make sure they're all nipped up tight. Cover's all back on, that's good, no contaminants, no dust, dirt, water, etc. can get into the motor now. Got that back on. Other reason I'm wearing the glove is because this is where this will come in. Some lubrication. Again, you can use some soap, very up liquid, Vaseline, anything that's quite slimy and not too watery will do the job. You really don't need a lot of it. Just take the cap off. We just want to spread it around the tyre. Tyre lube itself would be perfect for this. Again, this isn't a necessity, but it makes getting the tyre itself onto the rim a lot easier. So you just want to slime a bit just around the main contact points, which is the lip on the inside. You want to do both sides as well. You really don't need too much on there, so you can spread it around evenly. So once done that, guys, next phase is to get it onto the rim. So you want to be careful, guys, how we twist when we twist this over, not to snag the main wire too much for the motor. We just want to make sure it's comfortably rested on an even surface, and then slot the tyre over. It will require a bit of force, but once you're over that side, you can see it's in. Next phase, just to tuck the inner tube back into the tyre before we get it on fully. Once you've got the tyre back onto the wheel, you're ready to start bolting everything back together. Obviously it'll look a bit odd and deformed at the moment. We haven't got any air in the tyre. We'll do that as we go. First things first, make sure you get this the right way up. As I said before, the little washer at the bottom with the divot sits at the very bottom of the tyre of the wheel. That goes on there like so. Once you've got it on, tighten up one side. Don't need to worry about holding it anymore. These ones are pretty tight, these bolts. You want to give them a really good tighten. All the messy, greasy parts done, shouldn't need any gloves anymore. And the next step is just bolting these caps back on. Remembering that the longer bolts go on last, the shorter bolts go on first. Tricky to remember which go as well, so best bet is the bolts that go on first. They've got the little indents, so the one's in the middle and then one's at the bottom, so the short ones go into the holes where there's a little divots and indents. Make sure this wire's nicely tucked away, this sits over it. Same as the ones we just did before, don't need to over tighten these, just make sure they're nipped up and we're ready to put the reflectors back on. Easily stick just over the top into the groove. Make sure there's no grease or anything that's caught under there, as obviously they won't stick in. And we just need to repeat the process on the other side. Final step, pop some air in the tyres. You'll have the little valve adapter. This came when you bought the scooter. Easiest way to do this is to screw it in. You might need to screw it in a little bit, then give it a bit of a tug. So obviously when there's no air in the tyre, the valve can recess back a little bit. With that nicely screwed in there, we're ready to pump up. Now on top of the tyre, tells you to run it up to about 50 psi. And obviously we appreciate most people aren't going to have tyre gauges. So you want to just pump this up so it's nice and firm. When you think it's done, always worth going a couple more pumps, give it 5 or so. You'll probably lose a little bit of air as you come to unscrew the valve. And that's how you change the tyre on a Xiaomi M365 scooters. Hopefully doing some more of these videos. If you've liked it, please remember to subscribe below, like this video, and comment with what you'd like to see next. Remember, we're on social media, Facebook, Instagram. You'll see our tabs pop up somewhere, up or below. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe.